I was riding my bike one day and there was this old man on the other side of the road, and I started riding across the road and he just fell over on the ground, and I was like, whoa. So I rode up to him and said, are you okay? And I helped him up, and he said to me, oh, do you know where Sally's house is? I'm trying to find Sally's house. And I said, oh no, I'm sorry, do you know where she lives? I don't know who you're talking about. He's, oh, she used to live around here, I don't know where she is anymore. And I thought, oh, okay. And he had blood on his knees and his hands were bleeding and that, because he was a really old guy. Like, he looked like he was about 90 years old. I don't know what he was doing walking around the streets. And a few cars pulled up, and I don't know whether or not they thought that I hit him with my bike, and that's why I was standing near him, or if I just, and this one woman goes, oh, he'll come with me, I'll take him where he needs to go. And I just thought, where was he going? Like, what was he trying to find, and who was he? And some part of that element must have given me a spark for 41. Like, why is there an old guy trying to find this girl's place in the suburbs? And that idea of just like, sort of when you lose someone, maybe someone that you love or whatever the idea is, I like the idea that maybe there's another parallel world where that did work out and you guys did go off in the sunset sort of thing, like at the end of 41. But at the same time, you have to live with the reality that that didn't happen to you. And that's kind of the heartbreak of 41, that idea that you've got one chance, and if you mess it up, you don't get another chance. But what if somewhere else it's happening? Yeah, so I was working on, I literally wrote down 3 different script ideas. One was cinemaphobia, one was 41. I didn't have a name for it then. It was just time travel film. And there's another one which I can't remember. And 41 seemed complicated, and I thought, I'll leave that. I don't know that well enough yet to be thinking about that. And so, yeah, finished cinemaphobia and thought, I was talking to some friends one night and they're like, oh, what are you working on? I said, oh, well, I've got this idea it's for a time travel film. It's about a guy, he goes to a motel, he goes back in time. And then I just remembered all the notes that I wrote down, and I'm like, well, this happens, and he's trying to save her, but he can't because he's the one that stopped himself, and it all sort of started enveloping on top of each other. And then I thought, I should probably make it. I should probably finish the actual script, so I did.
And while I'm messing around with trying to get films going and umming and ahhing like most filmmakers, Glenn rocks up, with a completed script. I'm thinking, fuck. So I said, all right, what is it? And yeah, he tells me the story of 41, the time travel. And instantly intrigued, because his films are always dealing with, if it's not horror, supernatural, science fiction, it's always something more than the bland, drama, bland suburban drama that most filmmakers around try to do.
I loved it. It's exactly the kind of film I wanted to make, but I never had an idea like that. So when I got that script, I was like, that's cool. I want to work on that.
What happened is I heard about a thing called the cold reading series, and it was a group of people that got together and they read scripts.
I run an event called the cold reading series where we get unproduced screenplays and plays, and Glenn sent through 41 and I read it over the period of like a week, and we made an exception. Normally we only use parts of it, but I thought if we do this film in parts, nobody's going to understand it.
I was at the cold reading series reading of it. It was actually the first cold reading series I ever went to, and that was the script I heard, so it was kind of like, whoa. The script got read out and it was strange. It was just like this really weird moment of hearing the script and thinking, okay, cool, like that works, that doesn't work, that's ridiculous, and that's awesome.
It was good, actually. We had a lot of comments and feedback at the end, and we got Glenn to get up and talk about other stuff that he'd done beforehand. 2
weeks after that, we were casting. Like that's what kicked it off. Like the script was sitting there for a couple of weeks.
A week later, he's casting and everything. I'm like, fuck.
I got an email from my agent saying that she had been contacted by Glenn, and yeah, I read the script and got back to Glenn within a couple of hours, and that was pretty. Glenn was surprised to hear from me. It's funny, I never actually told her that we'd broken up.
Glenn had put an ad up for cast members for this film, for 41. That was it, I applied for that.
Time travel is mysterious. Its existence alone wouldn't make sense.
My audition obviously went well in the end, but getting to the audition location was a bit of a struggle, and thank goodness for Google Maps, because I was running late. I got lost. I took a wrong turn off, so when I got to the director's house, I came in rather flustered, and it was all very, very quick. I just sat in the chair and we started, but there wasn't really much time to breathe. It was straight in the door and start. That happens next.
Fascinating, because I walked into a room with a whole lot of people I didn't know, which is what you normally do. But I sat down with Glenn and a couple of the other actors, and we just ran it. And that was actually the audition. We didn't even do a dry run, so it was great actually, because often the first thing you do is better than the...
Your great-grandmother had diabetes, there's cancer in the family, and baldness too, and even the man.
Yeah, no, that was great how you read. So if you like the role, it's yours.
Oh wow! Oh shit! No waiting by the phone. Okay, that's cool.
My audition, good from memory. I auditioned for the part of Aiden. I didn't get the part of Aiden, obviously, but Glenn liked me enough to cast me as Dwyer, which is nice. In the end, I think it was probably for the best. I remember reading for Aiden and comparing that to what ended up in the final film, what Chris has done. I think he made the right choice. I think the way I auditioned was very different in tone.
Well, hopefully the audition went well. In reading the script, I realised that my part was very small in the film, but I thought it was important in that I felt Mr. Wells' role had to bring credibility to the whole possibility of time travel.
I heard about it through Glenn, actually. He contacted me. I had actually auditioned for Cinemaphobia, and we sort of kept in contact, and he let me know about it.
I know that you had a tough time getting over Lauren, but like Nick and I checked her Facebook page, and she was online. She's not dead.
I was amazed that it had landed in front of me, and so I was like, I need to be a part of it, because it's better than any other film. Like when you're a starting out actor, you get a lot of horrors, a lot of people saying, oh, I want to make a horror short film, or it's maybe something to do with spandex, but it was different. It was time travel, and it was adventurous, and it was daring. It wasn't trying to be an Australian film. It was just trying to be what it was.
The more you read it, the more it made sense, and once you got a sense of what was happening with a hole in the floor, and how it would work, how you could do this sort of morphing from time frame to time frame, it actually made sense. And it does make sense in the end. I love it.
Yeah, well, what happened is we cast a girl for the lead cast member. And I thought she was perfect. Like, she came in and she was great. And I thought, she's fantastic. This is the girl. We saw, 10 girls. This is the one.
We started filming, I think it was the second or third day of filming. And we did a scene, which is actually the breakup scene from towards the end of the film. And it didn't work.
And something just wasn't right. I don't know what it was. There was just something.
And Glenn called me the day after and asked for my opinion. And I was sort of like, I don't know. That's your decision.
And so I had to make the very difficult decision to change her.
Yeah, it was funny. Glenn called me and said, oh, we had to recast her. And he was like, you could tell it was like, oh, I had to do this thing I didn't want to do. No one likes to do it. It's uncomfortable.
Apart from that, I just think it's a chemistry thing. And like I said, you need to know how people are reacting with each other.
And we ended up recasting purely based on chemistry between the actors.
So that was difficult, but I made the call and I felt very good afterwards, and then I had to find someone else, and we were meant to film in like 4 days. And I knew of one other girl which I thought would be perfect. Met with her, and then there's one other girl, which was Dana. And so me and Chris drove around, went to the city, met one girl, and then the next day went somewhere else, met the other girl. And I just said to Chris, like, who feels right? And he was kind of leaning, it was both. There was like this big sort of like you know, I think both are good. And then I kind of said, I think Dana's the one, and he goes, I think so too.
Well, I almost knew from the photo, really. I think Glenn and I both were leaning towards her anyway. Not that it was my say, it was Glenn's say completely. But once I met her natural, like if you've met her, like her natural smile and her personality is amazing to be around. So she was somebody I wanted to work with straight away.
Well, when I made Luna, that was very intense. That was just constant for about 10 days with no breaks, and I almost like had to go to hospital because it just messed me up. It's too much stress, too much money. So I said at the start, 41, we're going to film like maybe once or twice a week until it's done. Sometimes we shot 3 or 4 days a week, other times once a week, sometimes once a month. Just to give us that time to get things ready, to get things prepared, because there were a lot of locations that hadn't been found yet. And so having a lot of time to find them was awesome. The only issue with that is continuity. You've got people that, you know, grow beards or get haircuts or travel overseas, and all things pop up, which can be quite stressful, but it all worked out.
Well, it was mainly Glenn's money that we used, and lucky for us, Glenn has all the equipment that we needed. The only thing I think that was hired throughout the whole shooting was a dolly, so we could move the camera around. And it was all shot on a Canon 5D, which is a small little SLR camera that makes really good footage.
See ya. Okay, Glenn, it's the first night of the film 41. We're about to film the very first scene. What are your thoughts?
I'm a little bit anxious, but I'm pretty prepared.
Hey Chris, this is the lead actor of 41. Your first night of filming, how are you feeling?
Oh, not too bad actually. I lost my virginity today, so...
That's awesome, so you won't be walking funny.
No.
That's alright, I think there's toilets. I'm just setting up for the very first shot.
The first thing we shot for 41 was at 7-Eleven.
What was the scene?
The petrol station, where Aidan walks in and grabs the stuff out of the fridge and then buys it from the attendant.
I believe that was my acting gig too, wasn't it? Yeah, I'm actually in the film several times, but where you see my face is I was the service attendant behind the counter in the service station that Aidan runs in and out of. Did a pretty damn good job of acting in that, I think. Consider I'm not an actor, but
I think it only took us about a couple of hours to shoot, but it's the scene where I come up and manhandle Aidan.
It wasn't stressful, it was very easy, and it was laid back and cold, but that's about it.
I found it a bit of a challenge to maintain the same hairstyle and also the same weight, because I wanted Officer 1 to be a lot bulkier than the other guy. And I found that trying to maintain that same weight over the course of 8 months or thereabouts was a little bit difficult.
I was heavier than I ended up being. So I lost weight by exercising, and I actually had to ride my bike because I lost my licence. Don't speed, kids. But apart from that, yeah, just a lot of exercise, trying to eat right and trying to get my body to be seen on TV. I got halfway there. I was half impressed with my effort. But yeah, apart from that, I think I've put some more weight back on now. I'm usually just say it's for a role. They go, oh, you put on weight, and it's for a role.
Well, this afternoon we had the scenes where I was drunk, jumping up and down on the bed, and then we finished up at the end of it with me slitting my wrists, being covered in blood, which is sort of... I've got the worst of it off now. But,
Interior motel, take 37.
We filmed in the hotel first, and I remember Glenn saying to me, we're going to deal with the hole in the floor later. It wasn't really figured out how it was going to happen. We did put a tarp on the floor when we filmed the first time, so the floor could match if we built a set later.
Soon after I first read the script, we started to bounce ideas on. It originally started with just a hole in the floor, I think, and it seemed very simple. And even Glenn was thinking, I like simple, but can we jazz it up a bit?
But I like the idea that it was like a naturally occurring black hole in the floor, and it just sat there. Obviously, it would have moved because if Earth's moving, gravity necessarily wouldn't pull it.
The one problem I had with the story that I kind of almost hated was, which made me actually even think the project won't work, is he had the theory that there were the two holes, you know, the forward and backward in time, but it was just the lino was covering the holes. And they're of course big enough for humans to get in, but no one knew about it. The room wasn't blocked off.
It was in the script, I just wrote it, I didn't think about it heaps, I just thought I'm just going to write it as I want it and figure it out later.
They're renting out this fucking room to people coming and going constantly, and they're not noticing holes in a small bathroom, which would take up most of the floor. They would fall into them, they would be suing the hotel, they would be complaining, and you fall in and, you know, 12 hours earlier and going, what the fuck?
Had a lot of meetings with Adrian about it, and we came up with heaps of ideas. Like he had a medicine cabinet idea, so when you go through.
And as he climbs in, we thought of having two rooms, and as he climbs in, the camera goes past the thing and he comes out and it's the 12 hours earlier.
We figured out a pretty decent way to make that happen. We would have had to build an actual motel room. And so I had meetings, like we looked into it, it's going to cost about $6,000 to actually build a motel room so we could flip it. It was going to build in my uncle's garage. And then I kind of thought, no.
And we thought, oh, it's a bit tough. And then we thought, because it was a little bit difficult and it was starting to get into the area where Glenn didn't want to go, where he didn't want it to be too snazzy and too fanciful and, you know, over-the-top sci-fi.
Simple ideas, and that basically came from Field of Dreams, that Kevin Costner film, because that's a very supernatural idea that's dealt with in a very realistic way. It's like it's a stupid idea when you think about it. Like, why would baseball players come out of a cornfield to play baseball? It's like saying custard's going to fall out of a lawnmower. But if you do it with drama, it makes sense. So when that custard pours, it's like, oh, jeez, I feel that custard.
And he simply just climbs in and climbs out. Nothing fancy. I was saying, put some sound effects, like,
and put in some crazy space sound effects to sort of show that Aiden was travelling through time.
And, you know,
I think that would have turned out quite naff. And what we went for was a really sort of realistic, normal soundscape.
And it works so much better because, yeah, the time travel is just one small aspect. The main story is, yeah, his journey, and it's awesome.
Originally you could go forward as well as back.
Well, yeah, we could go forward, which was...
and there was going to be two separate holes.
Yeah, it was just too easy. It was easy.
But, yeah, the back hole just seemed to be, you know, the one we went for.
It's not about showy effects and everything. It's about, you know, a humanist story. So I said, all right, but I like showy effects. That's what I do. He's going, no.
Then Shane, who's one of the actors, said he had a shed, I guess, out in Geelong full of theatre stuff, and he could build a set, which was just the corner with the tiles and the tarp on a table. So we made Chris go in and out of it.
Hey!
What's up?
Not much, pretty hungry.
All the shots looking down at the hole was a set built by Shane, which is at his little theatre workshop in Geelong, which was awesome. That worked out really well, actually, and better than I thought.
Yeah, I was Donna's hand. My hand made a cameo in one of the scenes where she goes through the hole. Donna wasn't there, and I happened to be there, so I got to be Donna for 5 seconds of hand movement going down a hole. It's very exciting.
And of course, it looked brilliant. And it fit in perfectly. That was another concern. Being low budget, when you build sets that are miles away from the location and you're using similar stuff like tiles and different coloured lino, you could, in your head you're thinking, yeah, it'll match, but half the time it doesn't. And then lighting is another issue. But it all came together, it looks good. You watch the film and like he kneels down in the motel room and then it cuts to the set, you know, miles away, and it's seamless, it's good. It's how an effect should be.
I think I only got a part script. If I got the whole script, I didn't read it because at no time during the filming did I understand really where it was going. I was just interested in my bit.
To be honest, I didn't read the script. I felt that was outside my job description. It might have helped a bit because I spent most of the film shoots fairly confused as to what was actually happening, especially since it was happening out of order.
I didn't get it. It took me a while. Actually, what was really good is at one point Glenn sent around this image, this diagram, and it had arrows and about which was present day and which was past and wormholes and stuff. So that kind of made a bit more sense. But with my character, she doesn't really have to get it, so it was fine.
I looked all around Australia for a diner. I love 50s diners, and I wanted a really cool looking diner, and there's nothing in Australia. Anyway, I looked on the internet, typed in 50s diner, and I saw the best one ever. It's the Olympia Diner in Connecticut in the States. And I thought, that's the place. So I just contacted about 4 or 5 different media places, and I just said, I'm making a film, I need 20 seconds of outside of diner, I need one during the day and one when it's a bit darker. Can you help me out? 2 people never got back to me. One guy goes, I know a cameraman, I'll let him know. This guy emailed me, he goes, I'm a filmmaker too, I'd love to help you out. And I said, great, I'll pay, like, you know, I'll give you, $100, $200, whatever you want to charge for it. And he goes, don't charge me, just make sure you put my name in the credits. His name's Jason from Connecticut. So yeah, that's how the diner's in there, which is really cool.
The hotel, like the motel, was actually shot in numerous locations, like 5 or so different locations to create one hotel. And one location we used for, it's a bit of fluff.
So we shot at, I think, 4 different motels or hotels throughout the shoot. And the reception was in one place out in Croydon, and then we shot in a motel for the interiors, and we couldn't get the same room twice, so we had to make 2 different rooms look like the one room, like flipping the shot and making sure it was lit the same way. And then there was the outside is another hotel again that was out a completely different area, and that was just used for the outside because that was the look that Glenn wanted for the film. And then the hotel sign was in Geelong on the side of a freeway with chicken trucks, and it smelled terrible. And the outside, there's a scene where he's standing outside and he's called in by the hotel owner. And that was actually shot outside Dan Murphy's on the highway in Pakenham. It's nowhere near a hotel at all. So I guess 5 things in total made up this one hotel that's the centre of the film.
And we'll do the whole sort of thing. It's going to be now that Monique is more concerned about you than Nick.
Yeah. just let me calm down.
It's a very sad case, but these feet are real troopers.
Still got the shoes.
Today I just can't really be bothered.
Does have anyone in?
Alright, here we go. He's lowered a bit.
Where's
Hello.
Is that the one that was actually used in Cinemaphobia? Like,
yeah.
Not for the film?
For the film. It's the camera that was for the film.
You cannot leave the hospital. You are allowed to use the phone to call family and friends.
Let's just say he can't G-string.
Oh no, I dropped something. Oh God. I fell right open.
Running, there's a lot of running. After saying I got fit, running. And parts of film that you don't even realise takes so much time. Just little short bits that you take for granted in a film, just that run you into the next scene, and you take it for granted. Visually you take it for granted, but when you're shooting it, there's a lot of preparation and effort that goes into those. And yeah, that's something I'll take away from it as well.
Well, I was driving around and I was driving to Phillip Island one day, just near my place. And I saw these really old houses just in the middle of these big paddocks. And I thought, these are perfect. So I pulled up to a house one day and knocked on the door, no one was home. And this dog comes up and starts sniffing me. And I thought, okay, someone's got to be home here. So I looked around, this old guy turns up and he's like, can I help you? And I knew he must have thought I was a salesman because I probably looked like a spiky-haired real estate agent from whoever, wherever. And I said, oh, I'm a filmmaker. You've got the perfect house. Can we film at your house? And he's like, oh, that's fine. And I went, okay, well, I'll mail you some information. We'll discuss. He goes, no, that's fine. Just let me know the day before. So, cool.
There was a little house out in the country that was just like perfectly dilapidated for the time, and it was good. I remember that there was lots of sort of chemistry between me and my hubby Matt as well, which was cool.
I remember it was a long day. We shot a lot of scenes that day. We shot, the ones at the house plus the ones in the car, and lots of walking around through fields and all sorts of things that probably weren't used in the end. But
it was interesting. It was good. I really hit it off with Anne straight away, and I felt like we're actually fairly similar in ways, and we've kind of both felt that from the start. So I tried to pay attention to some of her little isms. She has this thing that she does with her hands where she's kind of just holding her hands. So I thought that would be a nice way to tie that in. But I found the main thing is she was very warm. She was just a very warm person, so I tried to just let that shine through. But yeah, it was a really interesting scene because it was quite an important one in terms of the significance for him. Just trying to wrap my head around how that would feel for you to be meeting your grandparents as young people, around about your own age. So it was really interesting to work on.
Farmhouse scene, take 16.
So we filmed at the house with Loz and Matt, the grandparents, and Chris playing Aidan. And we're right next to a main road, which was awful, and I knew that was going to be a problem.
But because of the way the shot was set up, we had a major road right at the front of the house.
I thought at first maybe we could put foam up, like just get big sheets of foam and just have them, and this wouldn't hear the cars. And as soon as I got there, I realised immediately that's an awful idea.
So the way we shot it was half of the scene towards facing the house was the front of the house.
And when I wanted to film the reverse shots where you would have seen the cars,
and the rest of it was actually shot at the back of the house, facing out towards this lovely kind of lush field, which is more fitting in with our timeline, so to speak.
And then what happened after that is I was driving around again and I saw a very similar house, almost the same build of the house, that was abandoned. And so I thought, hang on, this is cool. I've got a house that looks, reasonably new, and a house that looks the same that's messed up, broken windows and overgrown grass. So I thought, wouldn't it be cool if there's something to do with how the house changes over time? So that's what's in the film as well.
Oh, actually, you said 2 hours. It's cold. Hey, Grant. It's cold. You might find it really good.
Yeah, good actually.
You're an actor, you just need to be able to pretend.
Hello. Listen closer.
He's on. Got another item we were talking about.
At the back of the paper. What's that supposed to do?
In the scene where Aidan's grandmother is on the table in hospital, everything was very quiet. It's this touching moment between grandmother and grandson, and everything was very quiet and a little bit sad because she's very sick. And we had the shotgun microphone right close, and Aidan's holding her hand, and all of a sudden her belly let out this huge rumble, and we all just got the giggles and fell about laughing because it was so perfectly timed.
You sound hungry, that's all.
I was in bed and my tummy kept rumbling, which was really weird. Yeah, I was in bed and for the whole shoot.
Jill, this is your fault because you ate all her food.
I remember our last day of shooting for me, it was the scene down near the lake we shot all those scenes in the one day. It was up near Mount Macedon. And it was probably this time last year, so June, July, and it was freezing cold. I had a very thin kind of old style shirt on, and Chris, the poor thing, had a t-shirt. I think it must have been the cold growing to our brains, but things kind of broke down a bit in the middle of shooting. I blame Chris. He probably blames me, but there was a while where we just couldn't kind of keep a straight face, and but it was good fun. Would you like in the lift into town? I've got my car up the road. I should be heading home. Do you want to listen to town? I can see you laughing. Would you like to listen to town?
Oh yeah, it was fun being a stunt double. I got to tackle the main character to the ground and then smack him around a bit, roughhouse him a bit, and then get smacked around a bit myself, which was good but caused a little bit of whiplash, but worth it.
We had to stage a car crash, and the aftermath was, I think Glenn got a windshield, and so on the location, I jumped up and down on it to smash it, and we positioned it right on, just on top of the car's windshield. Not really knowing if it would work or not, but because it was night time, it blended seamlessly. It sat in just nicely, that it wasn't raised. It looked like it was flat on it, and it sold the scene of a smashed windshield. I applied blood to it because the character dies. She hits her head on it, and yeah, it worked. It worked better than I thought, actually. I was actually thinking, oh, it would be raised, it would look a bit dodgy, but nah, seamless. Another seamless shot.
So the first week of filming, I had like a little rough cut, colour graded and mixed, all good to go. Because I had the time to do that, which was really good. And we knew what we were missing. Like if I shot something and thought, oh, hang on, that's wrong, we're gonna go back and add that in or fix that up. And
I'm the shadow of the head when it transforms from young Aiden to old Aiden.
So I remember we had to work out how we could get the reflection on the wall of the motel.
It was just a light casting a shadow of me sitting on the bed onto the wall. It was casting my head reflection behind young Aiden, so it looked like his reflection. And I was keeping an eye on him, so any slight movement he made, I imitated, and they matched. It looked like his shadow, and everyone would just think that. And then what happened, of course, is the camera pans across, and it still sees my shadow. You don't see me in it, and then it comes back, the same shadow, but old Aiden, he had jumped out of the chair, and the other guy got in while he was out of frame. And yeah, it just blends together. And of course, yeah, when he jumps up, I jump up, so the shadow moves. So it just looks like his shadow. So it's just a time sort of jump little trick that it worked quite nicely. It was good.
So the opening sequence of the film, I always thought it had to be epic. I wanted to show things from all over the world, different times, different locations, different countries.
When I first read it, my first thought was, how on earth is he going to shoot this? It was set in, I think the original script was like Paris and India and all over the place.
Originally it was a little bit more epic than I could have made. So we just stuck to things that were somewhat practical but still quite far-fetched.
So, but halfway through shooting I was like, no, we could totally do this. I have friends in France and India, neither of which ended up getting the shots for me, but we tried.
I went to Vietnam and filmed some shots. Was over there on holiday and just happened to get, some reasonably good shots for it.
Glenn went to Vietnam, so there's some footage from there. And we had a scene that was a caveman in the past walking through the snow, and that we shot, I think it took 8 hours.
We filmed a caveman in the snow, which took like a whole day to film.
We got this guy called Zach, who was a friend of my brother's. I turned to my brother and said, "Do you know anyone who looks like a caveman?" He said, "Yes, actually, I have a friend. He's got a giant beard and hair like this." It's like, great, thinks he wants to go up to the snow and be a caveman. My brother said, "Yeah, sure, I'll call him." So 2 days later, we're leaving to go. He's calling this guy, calling him. He wasn't answering. It's like, great. Going up to the snow, and I was all ready to be like a cave woman. I'd messed my hair up and everything. And then he called and he's like, "I'm sorry, I was sleeping in a gutter last night and my phone ran out of battery. I just got home." And I was like, "Do you still want to come up to the snow?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." I'm like, cool.
Zachary Harris.
This guy was willing to run around in the snow without his shirt on and have snow poured all over him and stuff, and we were freezing cold and he was fine, so it was okay. And then we drove back, and it was for an 8-second shot. It's like 8 hours.
Time. They say that time is lost in memory.
And then we had a kids' party that I have a little girl who's been in a couple of things that I've filmed, and she's got a sister who's also an actress. So I called her mum and said, "Are any of them having a birthday party soon? Can we just film it?" She said, "No, but we can just throw a party." And her job, fortunately, is a party planner, so she has all the stuff. And we just had a kids' party, which was great. And then Glenn had the great idea of telling all the kids, "Oh, you know, it would look great on camera if you threw lollies at each other." So he did that, and all the kids threw lollies at each other. And then while Glenn was doing magic tricks, I cleaned up the lollies off the floor. It was great.
We cannot touch, see or control time.
I went up to my Uncle and Auntie's farm one night and I filmed a time-lapse scene. I just left the camera out all night. Friends of mine read the script and they said, "Oh, there's a birth scene at the start," because at the start it's like a baby gets born. They said to me, "Look, we're thinking of having a child next year, so you are more than welcome to be there to film it." I was like, "Whoa, that's amazing, like that's perfect." So I get a phone call one morning, I get a message, sorry, at about 3 in the morning, and it says, "Kate's going to hospital." Or no, Kate messaged me and she goes, I'm on the way to hospital." And I woke up and it's like 3:15 and I was like, it's probably a false alarm, you know, she's not necessarily, you know, she's not past due or anything like that. People do this all the time. She might have the baby, she probably won't. So I woke up Bethany and I said, "You know, I've got a message from Kate, like she could be having the baby." And Betty's like, "Nah, it would be a false alarm. These things, you know, she might not have it for another 10 hours. Just call her when the sun comes up." And I thought, I don't know, something about this, it could be now. So I jumped in the car and I drove up there. And I walked down the hall and I hear this screaming. I was like, this is happening. Enter the room. She's just about to give birth, basically. There's doctors everywhere. She's on the table. I set up the camera and literally as I finished putting the lens on and got the settings almost right, I didn't get them perfect, baby pops out. So I filmed it. The original shot was quite more graphic than the shot that's in the film now. I would have liked to keep it more graphic, I guess, not graphic, but you know, more realistic. But I think a lot of people were like, "Whoa, that's a bit all of a sudden," sort of thing. So it's yeah, but they were great. So thanks to Darren and Kate for letting me film that. Thanks to Charlotte, the baby that was born. There was meant to be a battle scene at the start of the film as well. So I contacted a lot of like, you know, what would you call them, like costumed replica reenactment warriors and all this sort of stuff. And contacted another group, they were more than happy. We set the date, we went out, we filmed it one morning, early morning. So we had like, I think, 15, 16 people dressed up, full Roman warrior costumes. And it looks awesome. And we filmed a lot more than what's in there, but we just found keeping it simple and not too full on seemed to make it work. Like just sort of, you know, have like the heads and feet were cut off and just sort of show the armour and that. And that seemed to sell it a lot more realistically than actually showing faces and that, because you might have seen people that like they look the part, but they weren't necessarily, like we couldn't dirty them up like I would have liked and all that sort of thing. So that was great. So, like that was amazing.
If I could travel through time and go back to another time that wasn't in my lifetime.
Yes, yes, there's a few things that you could do, you know, given the opportunity, you could probably do better.
If I could time travel, I'd go back to the early 90s and spend all my money and time on drugs and raves.
I think I'd go back to the future style and see what my parents were like at my age.
So my theory is I wouldn't travel backwards because I'm worried about the space-time continuum.
Oh, I'd be rapt to go back and see things that were memories of mine as a kid, and then possibly go back and see where the family really came from. What were they really like?
Because I hear these stories and I don't really know what's true and what's not, and I'd just be curious to see how similar I am to them, I guess.
If I could manipulate time, I've thought about if I could manipulate time, I could be able to freeze it or go slow enough that I could do like a crap on a table or in somebody else's pants and then leave and they wouldn't know.
I'm always fascinated with time travel themes. I think we all are. Time travel is an interesting question to put to someone. Where would you go? What would you do?
What happened? They'd all of a sudden just think they crap themselves. I've always found that I think that'd be great. Is that a superpower or a villain's power? Yeah, something like that. But you know, even an old couple could be sitting there and just all of a sudden there's a poo on the table. Where did that come from?
Would shoot the man who invented guns. And so the bullet would just go, and time would go, hang on, what the F is this? And the bullet would just spin, just get confused because it goes, if I kill this person, I won't exist.
I'm not really one for dwelling on mistakes, so I don't think I'd go back and fix things. I think I'd use it more as an exploratory thing. I'd go and check out things that were happening, cool things that were happening in time.
It depends what you're asking. Do you want to travel back to when you were young? Then yeah, what would you do? Well, there's always, you know, the girls I would have hit on when I knew they liked me. The threesomes I could have had. I was even talking to my wife last night actually about how two girls came to our house wanting a threesome, but you know, because I was a bit shy and my parents were there, I said, nah, you know, go away. And I said to her, oh God, if I could go back in time.
I didn't get tickets to Radiohead, so maybe I'd go back and see a Radiohead concert.
And then I'd probably just go around and see random stuff. I'd love to go to the Star Wars premiere in LA. I think I'd do that.
Go back to the time of James Dean, because I would love to meet James Dean.
I would go back to the 50s.
Wow, if I could travel through time, I think I would just be hopping backwards and forwards. I would just be taking like time trips, time holidays all the time, you know, just checking out all the major historical events, then popping into the future and just seeing where things are at, maybe so I could pop back and, I don't know, get prepared for it and stuff, or, you know, yeah, so that'd be good.
I don't know, I don't think I'd change anything. I'm a believer that everything that's happened happens the way that it should. So I don't think I'd change anything, but yeah, I'd go and suss things out. I'd go back to the Big Bang.
And I guess it'd be really nice to know with my children and my grandchildren what's their future hold. On the other hand, if you knew...
Do you want to know about the future? No, I don't know that you do. I think that's, I'm not sure that I want to do that, but yeah, given the opportunity, I could go back and have a rerun through things that have happened. I could get a better outcome.
Money and sex. That's all anyone time travels for. Not to redeem lost love or any shit like that.
Well, for about a year when I was prepping the film, I kept saying to myself, this is going to be so strange to actually see it finished. I remember remembering that and thinking, how can this possibly be a film finished that I can put in and watch? Because I was so far away from even starting to make it. And now it's done. It's because it happened so slowly, it's not really a jump, so it's not like a, whoa, that's the film. It's just kind of like, oh, well, that's what happened because I spent all those days making it.
Well, I first watched it when I was at the wrap party at Fiona's, and I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, but I enjoyed it.
The first time I really watched it as a film was the screening we had a few weeks ago. Before that, it was always, what do we need to fix? What needs to be changed?
It was interesting seeing the development between the cuts of the film, because when I first saw, I don't know what cut it was up to by then, I'm sure it was the 50-somethingth cut of the film, but you could see the storyline made sense, but the pacing didn't seem quite right.
And I remember the reason I didn't love it is because the music, the soundtrack, it was still a temp soundtrack, and he had bits of music like Dance with Wolves or something, I don't know.
Then it was amazing to see the jump in quality as soon as a recut was done to make a sort of proper distinction between the second and the third act. And there was a proper climax and a proper resolution, and it was just so much more exciting to see it.
But then I saw it with the professional soundtrack. He'd got a professional guy to do us the soundtrack, and it made the film what was good to really, really good, because the emotional impact was there, all the beats, you know.
I thought Glenn made me look really good, and from what he had to work with, I think he made a great film.
For every bit of downtime, we were instantly joking and friendly and relaxed, and that's what I remember about every night. I was actually, there was a few nights where I wasn't there, and I kind of missed not being there, just not so much for the shoot, just to hang out.
Super fun. It was great, actually. We all really got along well, and it kind of just felt like hanging out with friends. It didn't feel like going to do work.
I never had a bad day. I don't think. Like, I could have gone without sleep and food or driven for hours or whatever, but I always had a good time, and I always felt comfortable.
Very, very impressive to that any one person from the suburbs could just decide to make a feature film and on sheer get up and go, make it happen. That's amazing, because there's a billion obstacles in the way of anyone that wants to do that sort of thing.
So many times where we wouldn't get a scene done because everyone was collapsing in fits of giggles and couldn't do anything for half an hour until people sorted their shit out and could calm down enough, which I'm sure tested Glenn's patience on more than one occasion. But
just from what I saw of the film, I think it just showed what Glenn and everyone else around him and the crew that he brought together could accomplish with little to no money, and just time and effort, really.
I find myself working with young people all the time, and it's very refreshing to see the enthusiasm. That's what I take from working with young people, the tremendous enthusiasm for their craft.
It was spectacularly beautiful. I was totally blown away by it, and I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. It was on the edge of my seat the whole time, which was really, really cool. And it was awesome to just see it up on the big screen in a screening for all the actors and all the cast and crew and friends and family.
Yeah, we went to had a screening down in Baronia. That was scary. I haven't seen myself on the big screen before.
Advice I'd give to anyone who wants to make a film and has no money is you can do it. It's easy. You just need to know people who have things, and you need people to like you enough that they'll let you film in their places for free, and just, yeah, do it.
All I can take away from this project is that if you want to make a film, you should make a film. End of story.
Just walking away from the Metro Cinema in Baronia. Just had the screening, as you can see it in the background. And yeah, hopefully it's just the first screening of many. It's weird that it's over. It's kind of really strange. Sort of, standing around by myself outside the cinema. And yeah, 2 years of work. Finished. Awesome. Well,